is married life treating you?
It's wonderful. It feels the same in all the good ways. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, we've kind of been basking in the aftermath kind of glow of it all, and then settling back into real life. And there's like little moments and I'm like, oh yeah, when I have to introduce either Andy or, as my husband to someone that we're meeting for the first time. And that's when it kind of settles in.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, I was like, oh, my husband. But that's it. It's otherwise it's wonderful.
So your second wedding was just a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm. Are
you feeling at all the bridal blues?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, not just because of like, I really loved the whole planning process.
I mean, we can tell that you got really into it. If we look at this is like,
I really enjoyed it. If you couldn't tell, I had both a binder for each one. There's something like I love planning trips. I'm the planner of like all of our personal trips and for our friend groups, and so this was like a heightened version of all of that, and it took up so much of our time and our life, and it was something that I could like pour all of my energy and creativity into. So once that was done, I was like, well, what do I do with all of that creative energy next? And then also it was a week in Italy, and you're coming home and you're like, oh, I miss being in Italy and having all of my friends around and feeling all the love. So yeah, it was a shock, I think, to my system. But I also jumped right back into work. So it kind of offset that a little bit. We just kept it going.
Speaking of work, that's where you've built most of your following. Tell everyone a little bit about, how you got into what you do.
Well, I've been at Peloton now as an instructor since 2017. So math-wise, that's almost 7 years, right? And before
that was at the height of like the popularity, right? Would you say? Oh
yeah, for sure. I mean, they started in 2013. It was funny because I did their Kickstarter campaign. I was their like fitness model for them. And John Foley was the former CEO. He used to take all my classes when I taught at another studio. And he was like, I would love for you to come teach for us here. I unfortunately had another contract that I couldn't start when the bike was starting. But when he was like, the tread is coming and you need to be a part of this. So I joined at that point, and it was like 4 years old. It's, definitely had a huge following at that point, and it's just, continued to grow massively ever since. So, but before that, I mean, I've been in fitness since 2008. Always been like a dancer. That was my bachelor's degree, and I moved to New York to pursue that professionally. So I was dancing, and I had this really cool mentor that I was like, when you're working out at a gym and somebody is like, you should be a fitness trainer. And I didn't even know that like could have been my full-time gig at the time. It was before all the boutique fitness studios, before any sort of online like digital fitness, anything ever existed. And so I got certified. I started teaching. I was like, I love this. I love it so much. So I stopped dancing and went into fitness full time. And little by little, got, studio after studio and personal training after, one thing to the next kind of led me where I'm at now. I could name like all the different places I've worked at prior to this, but it would be a relatively long list. Yeah.
Peloton is like known for the energy of the classes, and so many of the instructors have developed like almost like these little cult followings.
Yeah, we have our crews.
Yeah, crew. How has that been for you as you kind of like are doing what you love, but now you've unlocked this little following of?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that you attract people that are like-minded. And so when I show up, I try just to be my whole self and bring my philosophy and my, love for movement, for music, for the community itself. And I think that has attracted people that also like those exact same things, love that style of music, love that style of programming, and the community that I've built within Peloton, like the subset, the Rock Solid crew, they are fierce. They are so some of the most badass women and men that I have literally ever come across, and they go hard. It's awesome.
I totally am on board with this mentality because living in New York City, I was doing Barry's boot camp. That was like what I would do. That was my religion when I was into it.
I wonder if you ever took my class. That's where I was for 6 years.
Which
before.
location were you at?
I was in Chelsea and Tribeca and Park Ave.
I was Tribeca
NoHo.
and NoHo. Those are my two. Oh, maybe I did take your class.
Yeah.
But Natalie Raitano was my girl. I loved her because I loved her 90s, 2000s mix. She always had the best hip hop.
Oh my gosh.
She, during COVID, I started training with her one-on-one online because
amazing.
I couldn't go. She wasn't doing Barry's anymore. She had moved on. And now like I still do my Zoom classes with her.
We love Natalie.
She's amazing.
Shout out to you, Natalie.
Yeah, love you, Nat. Super Nat. But like she has become a good friend of mine because people that you get up with and work out with multiple times a week, you get that connection. And even though for me it's a one-to-one, I imagine for you it's to many. Yeah. But like it's really an inspiring relationship you have with these people to keep them going.
Yeah, it's funny because it is digital, but also we have the studio classes. And so I'll have crew members come in and take classes, like fly in from around the country, even out of the country to come take a class, and we meet up with each other. But I have kind of established a really cool relationship even through social media with them. And I do befriend a lot of them. Like I feel like we have such a good open line of communication, and it goes beyond the walls of the workout for sure. I mean, even to your point of like becoming friends with your trainer, I think a lot of my former clients are still now friends of mine. It's just hard to be that intimate with somebody. I mean, we're in the walls of their home, like, and helping them. Every single person is on their own journey, and I think I take a lot of I take it very seriously that I'm part of somebody's personal journey, whether it's to help them get stronger, to overcome an injury, to get back into feeling like themselves. Whatever their why is. I'm being a part of that. It's a huge honor, and I don't take it lightly. So knowing that really makes it even that more special. So, when they come and share their stories, when I meet them, I'm like, oh my! It's almost even a little overwhelming at times because you don't know the exact thing that they're going through until that moment.
For me, every time I've recommitted to working out or going to the gym or getting on a program, there's usually something going on, right, for me, whether it's like, oh, I just had a breakup or I just moved or insert some level of stress, something, right? So there's something that's bringing someone to the table to, reset, right? And so I find that it's in those rooms or in those spaces, it can be really vulnerable. And then you're more even open to connecting. Like I made friends from like, oh, you're like a 6 a.m. workout person. Like we're both have a level of crazy that we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m.
You 6 a.m.ers are a different breed. I do it because sometimes I have to, but by choice, that was a tough decision for me to wake up and work out that early. Mad respect.
I don't do that anymore, but I did when I lived in Manhattan. And usually it would be after a night. I would be out until like midnight or 1 o'clock. That was in those invincible early 30s where could party all night and then be up sprinting at a 9 on an incline.
We were unstoppable. Huh? I remember that.
Started to hurt my knee and my hip though. Sprinting uphill's not the best.
Now I can't go 8 hours without 8 hours of sleep.
I'm at like
sick,
10. No, I need like 10 hours of sleep. So a different time. But moving on, I want to talk about how you met your partner.
So a lot of people think that because both Andy and I teach at Peloton that we met there, but our meet cute was way before that. We met back in 2011 or 12, and we were both fitness modeling for Wilhelmina. There was a casting at the agency, and I really didn't know anybody, and so I'm like fresh meat, like just trying to feel and look as confident, fake it till you make it. And there was this like really handsome, beautiful guy over there. And he was in those settings. I didn't expect, someone to be so warm and inviting. And he was like, "You're a trainer. I own a gym down in Soho. You should come train your clients there." And I was like, "Oh my God, yes, I should. Absolutely." But, you know, I was dating somebody at the time. He was dating somebody at the time. So our friendship just kind of blossomed at that point. I started training my clients at his gym. And then fast forward, oh my gosh, to 2017 when I got hired at Peloton. Part of my role as a director right away was to hire my team. So he was the first person that I actually interviewed. I was like, "Hey, I need you to come work for me at Peloton, be on my team, be an instructor." And he had just signed a deal to open a new gym here in the city. So he turned me down. 6 months later, I told my boss, I was like, "You should reach back out to him because we still need to fill another slot." And he's the one. Like, he's the smartest trainer I know. He's so good on camera. He's done so many workout DVDs. And as a fitness model, you're teaching and training on digital platforms. You just get it. Like, he had that spark. And so she reached out to him. Thank God for Robin. And she was like, "You'd be crazy to say no." So I guess at that point, he was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to get out of this and move over." It was a great decision. Again, he was still not available. We were working together. And now actually at Peloton, I think we started to get even more tight. Like, our friend group was just always hanging out and going out dancing and whatnot. And we got really close. And eventually back in 2019, we were playing a card game called Skin Deep. During the pandemic, we had our little pod, and you draw a card. I promise I'm getting to the end, okay? I know it's a long story.
I love it. No.
It's like a human connection, deep, thoughtful question game. So you can ask anybody the question that you're sitting in the circle with, and the card that I drew said, "Where do you see our relationship in 10 years? And at that point, we'd been friends for like almost 10 years. And I said, "Andy, where do you see our relationship in 10 years? And he said, "Either married or best friends." And I was like, "Excuse me." I didn't know what to say.
Oh my God.
So I just kind of sat there silent. And so did everybody else, like looking at each other like, "Okay." And then my friend just drew another card. Just kept it moving. But I did reach out to him a few weeks later. Like, "We should probably talk about what you said."
The fact that you want to marry me in front of everyone.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, he's serious," which felt really refreshing, you know, because it didn't feel like there were any games. I didn't have to put on a certain version of myself. You know, when you're dating somebody for the first time, you're like, have this subconscious, like,
you're putting on a show.
Yeah. What are they going to think about me? I have to go through the whole rigmarole of, what do you do for a living? What do you do for fun? I'm like, I already know all these things about him. I love him like that. So it was very natural to make. But
did it ever cross your mind before that? I mean, obviously the first time you saw him, you were attracted to him. You said he was a good looking guy, but
I think knowing that we were both in relationships and just passing ships in the night in that way, I kind of just ended up friend zoning him for a long time. And I didn't let myself look at him through that lens anymore. So it was almost as though I had blinders on. And when leading up to that for probably like 6 months, my best friends were like, "You know, he's the guy, he's the one, right?" I would be like, "What are you talking about? He's my friend, like, stop it." And when he like kind of claimed that, I was like, oh, I went away for a week after, and during that week that I was gone, I did quite a bit of reflecting, and I was like, well, let me just try it on for size. Like, how would it feel to look at him as a partner and not a friend? And it felt really natural and nice, and like I was excited, and I told him, I was like, if we're gonna do this, we could potentially, we work together, we're friends, like there's a lot that we could kind of ruin. So I don't want to take it lightly. And he's like, no, I'm all in. So that feels so wonderful and safe, which is really, I think, what I needed, because I wasn't ready to like play around, and I was ready to stay single until that kind of thing came came into my life. That's what I was trying to call in. And there it was.
Wow. Did you have an official first date?
Yeah. We went to, the official first date we had at my house, and we like cooked dinner, and I had this like sectional couch that we ended up making into what we call our square couch night. So we like built a fort essentially and watched movies. So square couch night was our first date, but we say that our first date was the Botanical Gardens, which is the second date.
Got it. And from that first date, official, how long until you guys got engaged?
Oh gosh, math. So it was December 23 that we got engaged, and it was January of 20. So three years just about, yeah.
He had proclaimed that you were likely to be his wife.
Mm-hmm.
But did you have a lot of conversations about getting engaged, getting married? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, at first, to be 100% honest, when I first got together with him, I was like, listen, I don't know if I ever want to get married. Like it wasn't something that I ever needed. I was turned off by the idea of it for a very long time, just for, seeing different relationships and marriages throughout my life. I wasn't totally sold on the idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, that's totally fine. If you don't want to, we don't have to. But in the case that you change your mind and you do, I would love to. So and he's like that in many ways, where it's very nice. It feels like I have enough space and time to make that decision, and also I don't feel any sort of pressure, which was really refreshing.
So you go into it not with an agenda, but rather, let's just see how this goes.
Yeah. And, I didn't expect it to happen at a certain, once we started ring shopping, because he was like, I think it's time. We got the rings. I didn't even know when they came in, but I knew that we had designed them because I helped design them. And he had held on to them for a long time. So, when you're like, well, maybe it's going to be at this time. Oh, it's probably going to be here. And I was like, okay, I need to stop this whole putting myself through this. Like, it's going to be when all of our friends get together. We're going to on this trip, like we're going hiking and we're going to be on the top of a mountain. This is definitely when he's going to do it. And I was like, okay, release that. Let it go. You're not helping yourself. And it definitely took, I think that was March when we designed the rings, and it was December when he proposed.
Oh, wow. He took his time.
He took his time. He kept saying that he was like, I want to do it surrounded by all of our friends. I want them to be there to bear witness to our love in this beautiful moment. So having him said that, I was expecting anytime our friends got together that it could be that moment, but it wasn't. We were actually not surrounded by any of our friends when it happened.
So tell me about the proposal.
We won a trip, crazily enough, to South Africa. And one of his very good friends is a travel agent, and he helped design this like whole 2-week trip to South Africa. We extended it a little bit. And it was the second day that we were there. I like to dress up. You and I were talking about that. We love having our walk-in closet for all the moments and times we think we're going to dress up. And so Mark was like, I know you love to take photos on all of your trips. Why don't I see if I can get like a content creator to follow you around so you don't have to do that, or a photographer, something like that, because you're going to do all these different excursions on certain days. And I thought that was phenomenal. I was like, hands off, I can just enjoy my time. So we started off in the morning doing these like motorcycle sidecars on Chapman's Peak throughout Cape Town and Camps Bay. It's very picturesque. They like do all the car commercials on that windy bend. And we stopped at a beach. We went horseback riding on Nordhook Beach and went all the way down and had a picnic in like Cape Point, like the most southern tip. We stopped at Boulder Beach to see the penguins. And then
just the most epic day, it sounds like.
Like wonderful. It was just it kept like heightening all day long. It was like the best day ever. And we ended up going to sunset at this really local beach, Ludano Beach. And I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that. But he was like, we should go take photos down over here. But there were so many people. So I was like, I don't care. We take pictures in front of everybody all the time. Let's just go down there. It's stunning. He was like, no, let's go for a hike over here. Meanwhile, I'm in this long dress with no shoes, and I'm climbing for like 20 minutes over these like lava rocks. My feet are getting jacked up, but I'm totally game. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So the photographer's like, there's like a rock in the ocean. You have to like leap to get to it. Do you want to go down there and take a photo? Say less. Absolutely. Yeah. So he's like, all right, go back down and go that way. And when I turned around, Andy was down on one knee and kind of took me by surprise, and they captured the whole thing. I was not expecting it at that moment. Of all the places and times of I should be expecting it, that was the moment. So yes.
And what was the experience for you? Did you cry right away? Do you remember it? Like,
of course. I wish I had a cuter reaction. I was so chaotic. I was like laughing, crying. I think I like pushed him and I was like, "What are you doing?" It was so embarrassing. I'm so happy that it wasn't caught on video and it was just photos, but even the snapshot of all of them, it's
the chaotic response.
Yes.
Believe me, I understand. My chaotic response was, I think I'm gonna like throw up or faint. Like I didn't know what was happening, and I got down on my knees because I collapsed, and I was like, and then I was like embarrassed, and I was doing this, and there was a photographer, and he was like, "Look, there she is," and I was like, ah. Then I was like, you know, your brain doesn't work in those moments.
It was like short wiring,
Yeah, exactly. So I always love to ask the question because some people who know it's coming, they like. I kind of am a little jealous of people who like cry and are like whatever, because I was like,
couldn't breathe. It was not my most flattering moment, but it's also very real. That I think was as cheesy and silly as it was. I'm like, that's who I am. So,
but pro tip: if you're getting engaged, if you think it's gonna come soon, just FYI, be prepared for the short circuit that happens with your brain, because it's very common, and you can laugh, you can ugly laugh, you can ugly cry, you can just do the push away thing. I've seen like viral videos of like the stop it, what are you doing? No, even though you want the proposal.
It's like the Elaine. Stop it. I couldn't. It was overwhelming. That's what it is. It's very overwhelming.
Really overwhelming
in the best of ways. Like that's a huge high. One of life's little highs,
I was eyeing the ring that you helped design. If you want to flash, so you picked it out. What was the design process?
So it's a stacked ring, right? And I wanted originally I wanted an oval, but I really love vintage and in terms of like all of my fashion. So we worked with Marrow Fine Jewelers.
Yeah, I knew it was her stuff when I saw the ring, because I was looking at getting a band from her for my wedding band, but I still haven't gotten married, so I don't get a band yet.
Well,
but that
highly recommend.
Because you got a double band situation. It's not just one.
So what I started off with, I wear this ring all the time, and I just love the shape of it on my hand. So I wanted to mimic that over here. And so that's how I was like, I need it to be that kind of shape. And when I saw their swoop, a lot of people do it with like all diamonds. But Andy and I both have blue eyes, and I just love to kind of incorporate both of us into that. So I did like an ombre of diamond and sapphire, but they're like, I wanted it to be a nice blue.
They're like an aqua color?
Yeah, I wanted aquamarine, but she said that they were really soft stones. So to go with a sapphire, and you can find different
that's so pretty.
Shades
so that's
of
a
it.
Sapphire then.
Yep. And then we did like an antique, I think it's called a miner's cut.
Miner's cut, that's what I have.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like,
oh my gosh.
It's a hand-cut diamond.
Yes.
It's a vintage stone.
Yep.
So they end up doing really well in candlelit. because they have a lot of like rainbow because they're hand cut. I also got a vintage. I did mine East West.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I was looking at yours and I was like, yours is cute.
They're so right. They're so
They
so
could be
pretty.
sisters, actually.
I know. I wonder if they are. They met in another lifetime.
So fun. So you were involved.
Yes.
So that's why you were shocked. 8 months is a long time to be sitting on a ring.
Yeah. I mean, I knew we were going to get engaged. It was a matter of when and how and all of that. So the anticipation is cool too, which was nice.
So you had a surprise proposal, but then opposite approach. You planned every detail of your wedding.
Oh, beyond. So it was really intense. Like we got engaged in December and we didn't start planning until March. And by March, I mean, we sent out save the dates, but we hadn't booked a venue. We hadn't booked any sort of wedding planner until almost April. And our wedding date was based on, this is going to sound relatively silly, but I really wanted to get married on a full moon. And I wanted to do it with all of our friends, and our schedule at work had already kind of been pre-planned with our time off. So it had to be a certain week. And those kind of parameters and guidelines just sent me in a full like, well, this is what it is. So here's what I can choose from. It kind of helped me narrow things down. But at the same time, when Andy and I were talking, we were like, let's talk about our values really quick, because it would be wonderful to have a huge party here in New York for all of our friends and family, and then to do something small with just our friends, because we didn't want to leave out our family. We really cherished them and wanted them to be a part of this. But given like I'm 38, he's 44, so our parents and grandparents are much older. Traveling for them is not as easy, so we wanted to bring our event, our wedding, to them. So that's what helped us land on doing our family wedding in Cape Cod at my uncle's house. And he graciously gave us his property to have this whole entire wedding ad, and all the vendors come and take over his property for a few days. He's super generous to be able to do that. And we decided that needed to be beforehand, because we wanted to have our family have that first nuptials. My uncle was going to officiate for us. So
you wanted your family to be part of that special day before you did the big party to celebrate with your friends.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
how big was the Cape Cod wedding?
It was about 50 people, give or take. It was maybe a couple, 52, something like that.
And did you end up hiring a local planner or someone to help put it all together?
Absolutely. Yeah. We hired Carrie Walters. She's from Always Your Events. She's incredible. And funny enough, she was like, when I rang her up, she has taken a bunch of our classes. So it was cool. She was like, I know who you are. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And she managed us. We didn't reach out to Carrie until June. So she planned that whole wedding in June, July, and half of August. So 2.5 months. She's an absolute rock star. It was a whirlwind. So that's why I needed all of this, so that my head didn't explode. It was hard to keep everything.
What kind of
scattered.
Planner were you? Creatively focused? What mattered most to you?
The things that mattered most to me were the overall experience. For us and our guests, whether that was our family or our friends, I think creating something that feels like we thought about them, and it didn't have to have the most expensive decorations or anything like that. It was more so about the flow of the day and how we could really think about spending time with everybody. I think what I heard was, your wedding's going to fly by, so get your photos done early, be able to spend time, play games, dance, eat. We just really wanted to be with our family and our friends during that whole thing, which they both started that way. My creativity for the Festival of Us for the week went far beyond that one particular day because it was a week. But that's what it started off as. Like, you know, it's about us, but it's about all of us. That's how I felt like this.
It's so sweet. So when I first met you, then it was in March or April when we had our
Yeah.
event. So you had been engaged, but you had not started planning. And
Which is crazy.
and you got those amazing photos that
I
Emily shot. You
know.
guys looked amazing in those
Mhm.
photos. So how did you go about picking a dress? Because most dress, unless you got something off the rack, how did you figure that out? Because you had 4 months.
Yeah, it was
Or less?
really wild. My good friend of mine introduced me to her stylist, and she started booking me appointments at different. I had a dress in mind that I really wanted. It was this Golly Carton. She's what year was it? 2016, and it's impossible to find something like that. But as long as I could find a version of this dress, I was going to be happy. So I showed it to her, and we started shopping around at different salons. We went to Galliolaha, Monique Lullier. We went to Bronx and Banco, and
All amazing, but also
Happy
so different.
Isles. All so different. And it was funny because the last place that she booked for me was Kleinfeld, and I was like, she goes, listen, I know it's not one designer that you're going into, but they have everything. And funny enough, when I walked in, the VP walked over to me and she was like, Rebecca, I love your classes. I'm taking care of you. Come on in. And Marissa Rubinetti, she is phenomenal. Absolutely love her, and so grateful because they actually lent me 2 dresses.
Oh, wow.
So I got 3, and they had picked out, because you send in like all of your specs of like what you would ideally want, photos, whatnot. And they picked out 4, and the first 3 that I tried on were the ones that I ended up getting.
Oh, wow.
Which is really wild. I did not expect that. It wasn't my experience at any of the other stores. So I was really excited about that. And I wore Netta Ben Shabu for my Cape Cod wedding. And I wore a Netta Ben Shabu mini for my after party in Italy, and a Panina Tournée for my wedding dress in Italy, which.
So then it was samples
Outstanding.
then that you were able to take advantage of.
Say it again.
You ended up wearing a sample then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was the actual showroom sample, which
That's
it fit me like a glove. They were like, we don't really need to do anything. They hemmed it a little bit. But the other dress, the Netta Ben Shabu for my Cape Cod wedding, I bought that and they made it fit absolutely perfect, which was, I mean, all hand purled freshwater pearls. I was like, one of those dresses where it's beautiful from afar, but when you get up even close, it's like jaw dropping. So it photographed really well, but it just felt perfect for a beach wedding, you know, to have the pearl.
I was going to say, because 4 months to get a couture gown is not an easy timeline.
I almost had my friend make one for me because she's a wonderful designer. She ended up making me a dress for like my wedding week, but at one point I was like, I'm not going to find it, and freaking out. I'm like a month away. I mean, I didn't find them until mid-July.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That you really rolled the dice with that one.
I'm a firm believer in that whatever happens is supposed to happen. So I was freaking out, but I also wasn't, because even if I had to like go into a random store here in New York City, I would find something and make it my own. So it didn't stress me out that bad.
What did stress you out in planning?
Okay, so the style of communication between the planners and the clients was stressful, because in Europe, I feel like there's a different, almost like,
Attitude?
yeah, there's a
More laissez-faire?
it's very relaxed. They're not stressed out whatsoever. And our planner, who she nailed it, but she works on it off an app entirely. There's no phone calls, there's no emails, it's just the app. And I'm a talker. I like to communicate things and need to like usually
soundboard, talk through
exactly.
things. Yeah.
So here's my idea. And it's hard to do that, especially with the time difference and even just the language barrier sometimes, where it just doesn't feel like there's a huge, it sometimes felt like there was a bit of a disconnect, whereas with my Cape Cod wedding planner with Carrie, it was so seamless. I mean, she was available to pick up the phone regularly. I mean, we were in such a crunch, a time crunch that it made me feel so much better. So I think the stress really came from communication, not from picking out I knew exactly what I wanted, and I was having a hard time finding those things, if that makes sense. So I'm like, for example, the mirror dance floor. It was going to be a full moon. I wanted that so that it would have like that reflection over it. And she was like, we don't have one. And I was like, but we can make one, or we can ship it in. And she was like, but I think that'll be very expensive, or I don't know if it's possible. And I'm like, I think it could be possible. Let's try. But those exchanges would happen over like a week or two. And she made it happen, which was awesome. So eventually, everything ended up working out perfectly. I wouldn't have changed a single thing. But it doesn't change the amount of stress that I had leading up to it. I mean, Andy handled so many things that I would sometimes, like, he'd come home and I'd be like pulling my hair out. And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, I need your help right now.
So what did he help with?
He handled a lot of the communication between the vendors and doing all the wire transfers. We like set aside, our finances together to be able to support it. But he was on logistics mode, where I was in creative mode, which he's great about that. Me and logistics, although this looks very logistics, it's very
what's in here?
Creative.
We got pens, markers.
Yeah.
Folders, notes.
My favorite part. Okay, we're going to turn to it. Ready? Where are you? Oh, here it is.
Oh, your mood boards. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So I made like a full start to finish every day of the week, all of my outfits, so that I didn't have to spend time picking anything out.
Love.
And labeled it all from, I could hand it to my friend.
Oh, for him. Oh, this is your sneakers. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, love. And you worked with a stylist too, or did you do all this?
So my stylist helped me find my dresses, and then one of my really good friends came to both weddings, and she's my hair and makeup artist. So she came and was a guest for both of them, and then also helped me with that too.
Amazing. What was the hardest vendor to book?
The hardest vendor to book. So we got married on a Wednesday, both times. It wasn't hard. I don't think any of them were difficult to book, just because it was such a random day of the week, and a lot of people were excited to have that extra, booking, whether it was the band, the DJ, the florist, like everybody was very
So you
available.
had your pick of the litter for vendors because they were available on a Wednesday.
Totally. I mean, even our content team and our photographers, that was actually something that really mattered a lot to me, especially for Italy, to have them with us for a couple days. I wanted our friends to have those moments too, because we're all in front of the camera and behind the camera as content creators on a regular basis. So I kind of wanted to like put that on somebody else so that we could really be together. And we hired Olivia and Living for our wedding content, and Danilo and Sharon, which both of them I cannot recommend them enough. They're outstanding. I mean, this was really what shocked me. The day before our wedding in Italy, we did this photo shoot with, we rented an Alfa Romeo and planned on going riding into town to meet up with our friends for drinks and dinner. We had talked about the mood board and showed them some photos that were inspiration photos of what I was going to wear, Andy, and then just the style. They were really interested in our conversations about the style of photography that we were excited about. So on their own, prior to getting there, they not only made a shot list, but they memorized it. They didn't have to look at anything as a reference. And she was calling out shot after shot after shot and just directing, and the feedback, it was so seamless. I was like, this, I mean, I've worked with so many photographers in my life. I was like, this is next level. It was unreal. And they were so much fun. They were so talented and easy to work with. I'm like, I would love to have you guys
shoot your life.
Yes. If you're getting married, Danilo and Sharon and Monica and Clem were their photographers that they sent out because, again, we booked pretty last minute. And luckily those that were team members of theirs that they train, they all study under them and work together. And the level of expertise that they bring and professionalism to the table is bar none. Bar none. Crazily enough, at the event that I met you at, Emily, who shot our engagement photos, was in the same town shooting a wedding on the same day, or else we would have also hired her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she books up pretty
Very
far in
fast.
advance.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
Wow. What did you splurge on for your wedding that was totally worth it? Or was there anything you splurged on? That
Totally.
You thought was worth it?
We splurged the mirror dance floor, which totally worth it.
Well, you were having a full moon wedding. You needed the mirror to reflect.
And then it ended up raining and we had to put a tent up anyway, which
blocked.
Wonderful. Totally blocked it. But, you know, it's fun to like look down and have that moment. But yeah, they did that. And I wanted a glitter table, which sounds crazy. Hear me out. This was like a disco, ethereal, very vibey wedding. And I had seen this photo of almost like a stone glitter table, which I know is not going to be possible, but I'm very much a DIY kind of girl. And so I sent it to her and was like, how can you make this happen? And she was like, I will see what I can do. And so they actually took one of these like beautiful walnut tables, stripped it, and then did multiple layers of this like glitter wrap and like it was almost like a paint because I don't like the
texture
of fabric laid over. I thought it looked tacky and cheap, but this was like, the little details for that kind of moment. I'm like, okay,
it was worth it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you thought was not worth it that looking back after the wedding that you think you would have cut?
Absolutely. We care a lot about music. And I would have, so we all love to dance. We could have cut the dessert easily. No one even like touched it. We weren't really drinking at night. We also were at our own villa and had access to all of our own stuff. Now, having it there on the dance floor, we had a gelato cart, we had olive oil cake, we had all of this extra stuff. And to be honest, nobody really touched it, which was interesting because I think at weddings often you're like, there's not enough food or something. But I think if there was anything that we, spent good amounts of money on that were not necessary, it would be that. But everything else, I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat.
So are you planning like a 5-year anniversary and a 10-year?
Okay, so everyone's like, this was so much fun. It was an epic week. I mean, we had a full week together, and every day had a loose plan. We had a Slim Aaron's pool party the day after the wedding. We had like a boat day that we rented this like enormous catamaran on our final day. And so everyone had so much fun. They're like, you need to do this every year. I said, if you want to start me a GoFundMe, I will 100% plan this every year. And I'll start planning it at the end of the trip for the next year, So if you want to come to the next festival of us, let's start a GoFundMe.
Put your reservation in now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wish I had unlimited funds. I would do it all the time. But
I know. The thing that is so fun, especially about a destination wedding, is that it's not just that one day. It's a trip.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole experience. And friends who don't know each other get to become friends, and that's why they want to do it every year. They want a reunion trip.
Yeah. I mean, we've already had a couple of reunions since we've been back, and they're the closest people in our lives, and yet some of them had never actually met, which was really beautiful. I understand, especially if you're coming alone, that there might be a little bit of timidness about how you're going to fit in, if you're going to love these people. But again, like, I mean, I started off, you attract like-minded people. And I think at this point in our lives, we have a pretty small circle, and everyone usually is on the same frequency. We have similar values. We have similar approaches in life. And it ended up being absolutely perfect. So, you know, I think it was really special. Now that coming home, they continue to chat with each other offline and made new friendships, which is really special.
Is there any advice you would give to someone who's now planning their wedding? Something that you wish you knew?
Yeah, do a lot of research, because I think I was overwhelmed at the beginning. You know, when you get engaged and all of a sudden it's like you're supposed to know what to do. Start with a planner. They can usually help out with a lot of things. Get clear on what your non-negotiables are. Plan if budget is
limited.
If budget, well, here's the thing. It's a lot more expensive than I anticipated. So maybe save up, or once you're clear on your non-negotiables, then you can kind of make better decisions about what you're going to spend on and what you can like save on. And then give yourself time. I mean, it was cool because without having time, like, this is a silver lining, without having a ton of time, you don't have a ton of options, which makes you make decisions faster. And if you're somebody that gets decision fatigue and you have a year and a half or 2 years to plan a wedding or something like that, it might be challenging for you, especially if you change your mind as you start to see more things on social media or on Pinterest. It's like, just trust your gut, have one plan, and be unified in that with your partner.
I love that. My last question is about sharing of your personal life and your wedding planning and all of these experiences. Obviously, you're telling us about kind of the ins and outs, but how did you navigate sharing your relationship, sharing your wedding and all of these intimate moments with, you know, your following, and how did you balance that?
So it's an interesting question, because I like to savor things for a certain time before actually sharing it with the world. And there's certain things that I will not, you know, give, that we keep for ourselves. But that said, you know, when we announced our relationship at the very beginning, which we had already been together for 9 months before we even announced it, just to make sure that we protected it in a container. And the community that we have on social, they're like the next level loving people. Like, it's not scary to put it out there in a way where they're, you know, when somebody's happy for you, it's makes it easier to share that part of your life. And it's not, I don't feel like it comes from a place of expectation where they feel like you owe it to them, because if you don't, that's fine. You know, they're not, I think I'm really grateful that my crew and my community is, if you want to share it, awesome. We would love to see that. We want to support and love you just like you would love and support us. So it's like, how much do I share so it doesn't feel too much? That's, I think, what I'm worried about. Like,
oversharing.
We know you got married, chill. But so I try to space it out a little bit. And I have so many new photos coming in because they take 6 to 8 weeks now, and they're just starting to come in. So maybe there'll be more.
Yeah.
But I try to like splice it up and share it in small increments.
Well, you're going to have to share the new photos with us, and hopefully it'll come out around the time the podcast comes out so we can release them together.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to see them. There's so much that I feel like I haven't seen yet, and I'm excited to kind of relive that all over again.
Well, thanks for coming and sharing about your wedding and sharing with the Loverly audience. And
my pleasure.
We love kind of following along and being a part of that early journey. And I was very impressed with how quickly you planned.
Oh, thank you.
Because in March you were like, I've done nothing. And then I was like, wait, she got married like 4 months later.
Oh yeah, we did it. We did it, and it was so fabulous. It was really fun. So you know what? Maybe I have a career in wedding planning after all. Who knows?
She's got a second career. I love that.
Yeah.
This has been the Loverly Wedding Podcast. We are hosted by Kelly Khalil, produced by Natasha Barkman, Shaylin Carroll, Kayla Fitzgerald, and Jennifer Alvarado. Watch the podcast on YouTube by subscribing to our channel, and you can follow and listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, and every major RSS feed.